I was hosting another Friday dinner at my house, the kind I had paid for every week since my husband Tom died 3 years ago. My son Brandon sat at one end of the table, my daughter-in-law Amber at the other, and my precious granddaughters Sophie and Emma between them, their little faces glowing in the candlelight. Amber had been making comments all evening, little digs about my age, my outdated furniture, how I just did not understand modern life. But when she leaned forward, wine glass in hand, and sneered at me with those cold eyes, asking how it felt being useless, something inside me snapped. I set down my glass carefully, my hand trembling just slightly, and looked directly at her. My voice came out steady and clear. "How does it feel, knowing I will not pay your bills anymore?" The table froze in complete silence. I stood up from my chair, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor. Tom and I had refinished together 20 years ago. Brandon's face had gone completely white. Amber's smirk disappeared, like someone had wiped it off with a cloth. Sophie looked confused, her fork halfway to her mouth. Emma started to cry softly. I did not wait for anyone to respond. I walked straight to my home office down the hall, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I heard Brandon's chair scrape back. His footsteps followed me. "Mom," he said from the doorway. "Mom, wait! What are you doing?" I pulled open my file cabinet, the one Tom had bought me when we started our real estate business back in 1983. My hands found the folder I needed. I turned to face my only son, this man I had raised, had held when he was sick, had cheered for at every baseball game, had sent to college with money Tom and I had saved for years. "Do you know how much I have been paying for your life, Brandon? Do you have any idea?" I spread the papers across my desk. Bank statements, credit card bills, mortgage payment receipts. 3 years' worth of documents, all with my signature, all with my money flowing out to support them. "Your mortgage," I said, pointing to the statements. $2,800 every single month for 3 years. That is $100,800 right there. Your car payments, both vehicles, another $26,000. Credit card bills you have run up and I have been paying off. $15,000. Private school tuition for Sophie and Emma. $18,000 per year. Then there is groceries, utilities, your cell phone bills, your insurance. Brandon stared at the papers like he was seeing them for the first time. Maybe he was. Maybe he had been so comfortable letting his mother handle everything that he never actually looked at what it cost. "I did the math last night," I continued. "Over $180,000 in 3 years. That is your father's money, Brandon. That is the money Tom and I earned together, building our real estate business from nothing. He died of a heart attack in this house, in our bedroom upstairs, and I held his hand while the paramedics tried to save him. That money represents 40 years of Tom getting up at 5 in the morning, of both of us working weekends, of us sacrificing so we could have security. And I will not let someone who calls me useless squander another penny of it." "Mom," Brandon said weakly. "She did not mean it. She has just been really stressed. We both have. Money has been tight, and I think she just lashed out." "Money has been tight?" I felt something hot rise in my chest. "Brandon, I have been paying for everything. How would you even know if money was tight? You have not had to worry about money since your father died, because I have been covering it all." That was when Amber appeared in the doorway. She did not look apologetic. She looked furious. "This is exactly what I was talking about," she said, her voice sharp. "You manipulate him with money, Pearl. You hold the purse strings like some kind of puppet master. And then you act surprised when we depend on you. You are the one who offered to help. You are the one who insisted on paying for things." I stared at her. Offered? I thought about the mortgage, how Brandon had called me crying 2 months after Tom's funeral, saying they were 3 months behind and facing foreclosure. I thought about the car payments, how Amber had shown up one day with a brand new SUV and casually mentioned they had put my name on the loan as a co-signer. I thought about the credit card I had given them for emergencies. "The credit card," I said quietly. "The one I gave you for emergencies only. I pulled up my laptop and logged into my bank account. I navigated to the credit card statement and turned the screen toward them. $30,000, I said. $30,000 in charges I did not even know about until I checked this account yesterday after Amber started making her little comments during dinner. Designer handbags from Nordstrom, spa treatments at that fancy place downtown, dinners at restaurants that charge $50 for a steak, a weekend trip to Napa Valley that I apparently paid for. Amber did not even have the decency to look embarrassed. She laughed. Actually laughed. You are rich, Pearl. You can afford it. Tom left you everything. The house is paid off. You have retirement accounts and investments. What else are you going to do with your money? You are old and alone. At least we are giving you something to be part of, a family to belong to. The words hit me like physical blows. Old and alone. Useless. Something to be part of. Brandon, I said, my voice shaking now. Brandon, are you going to say anything? My son stood there between us, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. He looked at his wife. He looked at me. He looked at the floor. I need both of you to leave my house, I said. Right now. Pearl, Brandon started. Now, I repeated. Get your children and go. They left. I stood at my window and watched Brandon buckle Sophie and Emma into their car seats. The car I had been making payments on for 2 years. I watched them drive away down the street. Tom and I had chosen, because it was in a good school district, back when Brandon was 8 years old, and we were building our life here. I sat down at Tom's desk and cried for the first time since his funeral, not because I regretted what I had said, but because I knew what I had just done. I had stood my ground. Yes, I had set a boundary, yes, but I had also just cut myself off from my granddaughters, from Sophie's bedtime stories and Emma's giggles, from the only family I had left. And somehow, I knew this was only the beginning. 2 weeks passed like years. I canceled all the automatic payments from my accounts to theirs, the mortgage, the car payments, the utilities, the credit card, everything. My bank account suddenly looked healthier, but my heart felt like it was dying. I called Brandon every day for the first week. He did not answer. I drove by their house twice, just hoping to catch a glimpse of Sophie or Emma playing in the yard. They were never outside. I sent texts. Nothing. I mailed cards to my granddaughters with $20 bills inside and little notes telling them Grandma loved them. I never knew if they received them. My best friend Helen came over every other day, bringing groceries I did not eat, and sitting with me while I stared at photo albums. Pictures of Brandon as a baby, his first day of school, his wedding to Amber, where I had worn a lavender dress and smiled so hard my face hurt because I thought he had found someone who would make him happy. You did the right thing, Helen kept saying. Pearl, you cannot let people treat you that way, even if they are family, especially if they are family. But it did not feel right. It felt like I had amputated part of myself. On a Tuesday morning, my phone rang. I did not recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Maybe it was Brandon calling from a friend's phone. Pearl? It was Amber's voice, but different, soft, almost sweet. Pearl, it is Amber. Please, do not hang up. I almost did. My finger hovered over the red button. I am calling because we need help, she continued. We received an eviction notice yesterday. 30 days to get out. Pearl, we are going to be homeless. The girls, they do not understand what is happening. Sophie keeps asking why we have to leave our house. Emma cries every night. I closed my eyes. 30 days. Of course. I had stopped paying their mortgage 2 weeks ago. They must have already been behind before that. I am sorry for what I said at dinner, Amber went on. I was drunk. I was stressed. I did not mean any of it. You are not useless. You are the most capable woman I know. You built a whole business with Tom. You have always been there for us. I was just lashing out because I felt like a failure, like I could not provide for my own family. But that is not your fault. That is mine. Please, Pearl. Please help us. I am begging you. for Sophie and Emma. My chest ached. I thought about Emma's little face, her gap-toothed smile. I thought about Sophie reading to me from her favorite book, the one about the girl who could talk to animals. "Brandon wants to talk to you too," Amber said. There was a rustling sound, and then Brandon's voice came on. "Mom," he said, and he sounded like he had been crying. "Mom, I am so sorry. For everything. For not defending you. For letting it get this far. You are my mother. You raised me to be better than this, and I failed you. I failed Dad's memory too. Please, can we talk about this? Can we figure something out?" I wanted to cave. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to say yes, to write them a check, to fix this problem like I had been fixing their problems for 3 years, to be needed, to be part of their lives again. But then I heard Helen's voice in my head. "This is manipulation, Pearl. They are using those babies to get to you." "I will help with the girls," I heard myself say. "I will open a separate account just for their necessities. School tuition, clothes, food, medical expenses. You send me the receipts, and I will reimburse you or pay directly. But I will not pay your mortgage or your car payments or your lifestyle expenses anymore. You are both adults. You need to learn to stand on your own feet." There was silence on the other end. Then Amber's voice came back on, the sweetness gone. "That is not enough, Pearl. We need the mortgage payment. We need help with everything. You are basically offering us scraps." "It is what I am offering," I said. "Take it or leave it." "Fine," Amber said coldly. "We will take it, for now." The line went dead. Helen was right to be suspicious. 2 days later, Brandon came over to my house to discuss the details of the arrangement, how much I would put in the account each month, how the receipts would work. I went to the kitchen to make us coffee, trying to pretend things could be normal between us, at least for a few minutes. While I was grinding the beans, Brandon's phone buzzed on my coffee table. He had left it there when he went to use the bathroom. I was not trying to snoop, but the text message lit up the screen, and I saw it. It was from Amber. Did she agree? Make her feel guilty about the girls. If this does not work, Plan B. We will take legal action, like I said. My hands froze on the coffee grinder. Plan B. Legal action. Brandon came back into the living room. I was standing there holding his phone. "What is Plan B?" I asked quietly. His face went red. He grabbed the phone from my hand. "That is private. Brandon, I am your mother. What is Amber planning?" "Nothing," he said quickly. "She was just upset. She did not mean anything." "What legal action?" "Mom, drop it." He left, just walked out without another word, and I stood there in my living room with half-ground coffee beans and a sick feeling in my stomach. I called Helen. She came over within 20 minutes. I told her everything. "You need to find out what they are planning," Helen said firmly. "Pearl, these people are not playing games. They are coming after you somehow, and you need to know what you are dealing with." That is when I did something I never thought I would do. I hired a private investigator, a man named Jack, who Helen's nephew had used during his divorce. I gave Jack all the information I had and asked him to find out what Amber was planning. He called me back 3 days later and asked me to meet him at his office. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, spreading papers across his desk. "I found out what Plan B is. Your daughter-in-law has been laying groundwork for something. She has been telling neighbors and family members that you are experiencing cognitive decline, that you are becoming forgetful and unstable, that you have been accusing her of things that never happened." "What?" I felt like the floor was tilting. "She has been building a narrative," Jack continued. "I spoke to 3 different people who told me Amber has mentioned being concerned about your mental state. She has been asking them if they have noticed you seeming confused or repeating yourself. She has been planting seeds. But why? What is the point?" Jack pulled out another document. "She has consulted with an attorney, a lawyer who specializes in conservatorships and elder care law. Mrs. Patterson, I believe she is planning to have you declared mentally incompetent so she can take control of your finances." The room went silent, except for the hum of Jack's computer. I could not breathe. Could not think. If she succeeds, Jack said gently, your son would become your legal guardian as your next of kin, which means she would have control of everything. Your house, your bank accounts, all of it. I drove home in a daze. I sat in my driveway for 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside. When I finally did, I walked through every room of the house Tom and I had built our life in. The kitchen where we had cooked together, the bedroom where he had died in my arms, the office where we had planned our business and our future. Amber was not just trying to get my money anymore. She was trying to take my freedom, my autonomy, my entire life, and I had no idea how to stop her. The envelope arrived on a Monday morning, delivered by a process server who made me sign for it. Legal documents. The kind that make your hands shake when you open them. Petition for psychological evaluation and possible conservatorship. The words blurred on the page. I had to read it 3 times before I understood what I was seeing. Amber and Brandon were formally petitioning the court to have me evaluated for dementia and early-onset Alzheimer's disease. They were claiming I had shown clear signs of cognitive decline and needed to be protected from myself. The evidence they cited made me sick. They said I had forgotten giving them the credit card for emergencies. That was not true. I never forgot. I just did not know they were using it for $30,000 in luxury purchases. They said I had made irrational financial decisions, specifically cutting off their support without cause. They said I had become paranoid and accusatory, making wild claims about theft and manipulation that had no basis in reality. It was all twisted. Everything I had done, everything I had discovered, turned inside out to make me look unstable. But the worst part was the witness statements. 2 of Amber's friends, women I had met maybe twice at family barbecues, had signed notarized statements. They claimed they had witnessed my confusion at social events. One said, I had asked her the same question 3 times in a row at Sophie's birthday party last year. Another said I had seemed disoriented and unable to follow conversations at a holiday gathering. None of it was true. I remembered those events perfectly. I had been fine. They were lying, and their lies were notarized and filed with the court. I called an attorney immediately. Gary Winters, a man in his 50s who specialized in elder law. Helen had gotten his name from someone at her church. He agreed to see me that afternoon. Mrs. Patterson, Gary said after reviewing the documents, this is serious. These petitions are designed to protect elderly people from exploitation, which is a good thing in legitimate cases. But they can also be abused by people who want to control someone else's assets. The problem is that courts tend to be very cautious. They would rather err on the side of protecting someone who might be vulnerable than risk leaving someone incompetent in charge of their own affairs. So what do? We fight it. We get documentation from your doctor showing you are completely mentally competent. We gather character witnesses who can testify to your sound judgment. We show the court that this petition is being filed in bad faith. But I have to be honest with you. The accusation alone is damaging. People hear that someone is being evaluated for dementia, and they start treating that person differently, even before any determination is made. When is the hearing? 3 weeks from now. I made an appointment with my doctor, Maria Martinez, for the next day. I had been seeing her for 15 years. She knew me. She would help. But when I sat in her office and explained what was happening, Dr. Martinez looked troubled. Pearl, she said slowly, I need to tell you something. About 2 months ago, I received a call from a woman who identified herself as your daughter-in-law. She said she was concerned about your memory. She asked if you had mentioned any cognitive issues, if I had noticed anything during your appointments. She wanted to know if you were on any medications for dementia or confusion. 2 months ago, before the dinner, before everything exploded. What did you tell her? I asked. I told her I could not discuss your medical information without your permission. She seemed disappointed. I did not think much of it at the time. Family members often call with concerns. But now, given what you are telling me, I think she was building a case even back then. This was premeditated. The word hung in the air between us. Premeditated. Amber had been planning this for months. Maybe the confrontation at dinner was not even spontaneous. Maybe she had wanted me to cut them off so she could claim I was acting irrationally. Dr. Martinez ran me through a complete cognitive evaluation right there in her office. Memory tests, problem solving, current events. She asked me to remember 3 words and recall them 5 minutes later. She had me draw a clock and write in the numbers. She tested my reasoning and judgment. "You are absolutely fine, Pearl," she said when we finished. "Your cognitive function is completely normal for a woman your age. In fact, you are sharper than most people I see. I will write a detailed letter for your attorney, documenting your mental competence." But as I left her office, I felt a new weight settling over me. Even with Dr. Martinez's evaluation, I still had to go to court. I still had to stand in front of a judge and prove I was not losing my mind. And the very fact that I had to prove it meant people would wonder. The accusation alone was a stain I could not wash off. Over the next 2 weeks, I prepared for the hearing with Gary. We gathered bank statements showing my sophisticated financial management. We collected letters from friends and business associates testifying to my sound judgment. We documented every real estate transaction I had handled since Tom died, showing I was still actively managing rental properties and making smart investment decisions. But Brandon would not talk to me. I tried calling him a dozen times. I needed to know if he really believed I was incompetent, or if Amber was forcing him to go along with this. I needed my son to tell me he knew I was fine. He never answered, never called back. The community reaction was awful. Helen told me that people at her book club had been talking about the sad situation with Pearl Patterson and her declining mental health. Someone at the grocery store asked me very slowly and carefully if I needed help finding the milk, speaking to me like I was a child. My neighbor Dorothy gave me a sympathetic look when she saw me getting my mail, and said she had heard about my troubles, and was there if I needed anything. I was not even sick, and already people were treating me like I was. 3 days before the hearing, I sat in my house alone and broke down. I called Helen, sobbing. "I cannot do this," I told her. "Everything Tom and I built, our whole life together, she is stealing it all, and the worst part is that Brandon is letting her. My own son believes her over me." Helen came over and held me while I cried. She made me tea. She reminded me that I was strong, that Tom would want me to fight, that giving up now meant Amber won everything. But that night, lying in bed, I thought about just settling, just giving them some money to make this go away. I was exhausted. The stress was killing me. Maybe it would be easier to buy them off, to salvage whatever relationship I could with my granddaughters, to avoid the humiliation of a court hearing where I had to prove my own sanity. I almost gave up. Almost. But then I thought about Tom, about how hard we had worked, about the legacy we had built, about the fact that letting Amber get away with this would mean she could do it to someone else, maybe had done it to someone else before. I had to hold on. Just 3 more days. The days before the hearing crawled by. Gary was confident we would win. But confidence did not stop my hands from shaking every time I thought about standing in front of a judge. It did not stop me from waking up at 3 in the morning with my heart racing, imagining everything that could go wrong. 10 days before the hearing was supposed to happen, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. It was a number I recognized. The elementary school Sophie attended. "Mrs. Patterson? This is Principal Anderson. I am calling because Sophie is in my office, and she asked to speak with you. She is quite upset. I know there is some family situation happening, but she was very insistent. Would you be willing to talk to her?" "Yes," I said immediately. "Yes, of course." There was a rustling sound, and then Sophie's small voice came through the phone, thick with tears. "Grandma Pearl? Sophie, sweetheart, what is wrong?" She was crying so hard she could barely speak. "Mommy told me that you are sick. She said you are sick in the head and that you might have to go away." "Grandma, are you going to go away?" "I do not want you to go away. I miss you so much." My heart shattered into pieces. "Oh, baby, No, Grandma is not sick. Grandma is perfectly fine. There has been a big misunderstanding, but I promise you I am healthy, and I am not going anywhere. But Mommy said, Sophie hiccuped. She said you do not remember things right anymore. She said you might not even remember me soon. Sophie, I remember everything about you. I remember the day you were born. I remember teaching you to ride your bike. I remember that your favorite color is purple, and you want to be a veterinarian when you grow up. Grandma's memory is perfect, I promise. I heard another voice in the background. Amber's voice, sharp and angry. Then the line went dead. She had taken the phone from Sophie. I sat there shaking, the phone still pressed to my ear, even though no one was there anymore. Amber was telling my granddaughters I was losing my mind. She was scaring them, using them. I called Gary immediately and told him what happened. He sighed deeply. Unfortunately, that is not illegal, he said. She can say whatever she wants to her own children, but it shows her character. It shows what kind of person we are dealing with. The next afternoon, I got served with another set of legal papers. This time, it was an emergency petition for a restraining order. Amber was claiming I had been making harassing and threatening phone calls to their home. She said my contact was emotionally harmful to the children given my unstable mental state. She said she feared for their safety. The evidence was phone records. They showed multiple calls from my number to theirs over the past 2 weeks. What she did not mention in her petition was that I had been calling trying to reach Brandon, trying to reason with my own son. But in the context of the incompetency petition, the calls looked obsessive, desperate, like the behavior of someone who was not thinking clearly. There was an emergency hearing on the restraining order 2 days later. Gary argued on my behalf, but the judge granted a temporary order. I was to stay 500 feet away from Amber, Brandon, Sophie, and Emma until a full hearing could be held. 500 feet. I could not go to their house, could not go to the girls' school, could not call, could not text, could not email. I was completely cut off from the only family I had left. That night, I could not eat, could not sleep. I sat in Tom's chair in the living room and looked at family photos until my eyes burned. Brandon as a baby, Sophie and Emma at the park, Tom and me on our wedding day, both of us so young and full of hope. Gary called me the next morning. Mrs. Patterson, I need to be straight with you. The restraining order strengthens their case. It makes you look unstable. Why would a judge grant a restraining order if there was not some validity to the concerns? We are going to have to fight even harder now. Helen stopped by that afternoon and found me on the couch, still in my pajamas. She had been doing some detective work online. Pearl, she said, sitting down next to me. I found something. Amber has been posting in local Facebook groups. She has been talking about her poor children having to deal with a mentally ill grandmother. She is asking for recommendations for family attorneys. She is creating a narrative online for everyone to see. She showed me her phone. There it was. Posts from Amber in 3 different community groups, all saying variations of the same thing, seeking advice about elderly family member with dementia. Worried about children's exposure to unstable grandmother. Need legal help protecting family from mentally incompetent relative. The comments were sympathetic. People suggesting lawyers. People sharing their own stories about difficult situations with elderly parents. People saying how sad it was and how brave Amber was for dealing with it. I was not even sick, but hundreds of people in my community now thought I was. The stress was destroying me. I went back to Dr. Martinez because my blood pressure was dangerously high. She prescribed medication for anxiety. I had never needed anxiety medication in my life, not even when Tom died. But now I could not function without it. The bitter irony was not lost on me. I was taking anxiety medication because I was being falsely accused of mental incompetence, and now the fact that I needed anxiety medication could be used as evidence that something really was wrong with my mental health. Every solution created a worse problem. Every attempt to defend myself made me look more defensive. Every action I took could be twisted to support Amber's narrative. I tried one last time to reach Brandon. I wrote him a letter. A real letter, handwritten on the stationery Tom had bought me for our 30th anniversary. I told him everything. About how much I loved him. About how I knew Amber was manipulating him. About how I understood he was caught between his wife and his mother, but that he needed to see the truth. I told him about his father, and how Tom would want him to be strong, to think for himself, to protect the family's legacy. I sent it certified mail, so I would know he received it. It came back a week later, refused, unopened. Brandon had rejected my letter, without even reading it. That was when I hit bottom. I sat at my kitchen table with that unopened letter in front of me and realized I had lost my son, maybe forever. And I was about to lose everything else too. The competency hearing was in 4 days. I had spent thousands of dollars on attorney fees. My health was failing. My reputation was destroyed. I was isolated from my grandchildren and estranged from my son. And even if I won the hearing, even if the judge ruled in my favor, the damage was already done. People would always wonder, always think that maybe there had been something to the accusations, always treat me a little differently, a little more carefully. Amber had already won in so many ways, even if she lost in court. I thought about giving up, about just letting it all go, about moving away somewhere and starting over, leaving behind the house and the memories and the fight. But then, I looked at Tom's photo on the mantel. The one from our 40th anniversary, just months before he died. He was smiling at me, his eyes full of love and pride. Pride in what we had built together. Pride in the life we had created. I could not give up. Not yet. Not while there was still a chance to fight back. I just had to hold on 4 more days. I woke up on Thursday morning, 4 days before the hearing, to someone pounding on my front door. When I opened it, there was an official-looking notice taped to the wood. My hands shook as I pulled it off and read it. Notice of lien. There was a lien filed against my property. Against my house. The house Tom and I had bought 42 years ago, with every penny we had saved. The house where we had raised Brandon. The house where Tom had died in my arms. I called Gary immediately, not even caring that it was 6:30 in the morning. He was at my house within an hour, reviewing the documents. His face was grim. Mrs. Patterson, your daughter-in-law has filed a civil lawsuit. She is claiming that 3 years ago, at your husband's funeral, you made an oral promise, in front of witnesses, to give Brandon and Amber this house in your will. She is claiming breach of oral contract and saying that you are now mentally unfit to manage the property. The lawsuit seeks either immediate transfer of the property or compensation of $600,000, which is apparently what the house is worth, according to the appraisal she had done. That is insane. I never said anything like that. Tom's funeral was the worst day of my life. I barely remember what I said to anyone. Gary flipped through more pages. She has witnesses. 2 people who claim they heard you make this promise. Their statements are notarized. Who? He read the names. I barely recognized them. Distant acquaintances. People who had come to the funeral, but who I had maybe spoken to for 5 minutes total. People Amber must have tracked down and convinced to lie for her. This is completely false, I said. Every word of it. I believe you, Gary said, and I believe we can fight this and win. But Mrs. Patterson, you need to understand what she is doing here. This lawsuit by itself is frivolous and will eventually be thrown out. But combined with the competency petition and the restraining order, it creates a pattern. It makes you look erratic. Someone who makes wild promises and does not remember them. Someone who is unstable in her financial and legal dealings. Someone who is lashing out at family members who are just trying to help her. How much is this going to cost me to fight? I asked quietly. Between defending the competency petition, fighting the restraining order, and now this civil suit, Gary said carefully, you are probably looking at $50,000 in legal fees, maybe more, if any of this goes to trial. $50,000, money Tom and I had saved. Money that was supposed to be for my retirement, for my care as I got older, for leaving something to Brandon and the girls when I died. Now it was going to attorneys to defend myself against lies. The lien means I cannot sell the house, even if I wanted to. I was trapped in every possible way. I spent that day in a fog. Helen came over and found me just sitting in the living room, staring at nothing. "Pearl," she said gently, "you cannot give up now. You are so close to the hearing. Just hold on a little longer." But I did not know if I could. The weight of it all was crushing me. I felt like I was drowning, and every time I tried to surface, something pushed me back under. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Patterson? This is Jack, your private investigator. I found something important, something that could change everything, but I need more time to verify it and make sure it holds up. Can you give me 3 more days? Can you hold on until Monday?" The hearing was Tuesday. Monday would be cutting it very close. "What did you find?" I asked. "I cannot say yet. Not until I am sure. But please, just trust me. Do not do anything drastic. Do not settle. Do not give up. 3 more days." He hung up before I could ask more questions. 3 more days. I had to survive 3 more days. That night I could not sleep at all. I walked through my house in the dark, remembering the living room where Brandon took his first steps, the kitchen where Tom and I had our coffee every morning for 40 years, the bedroom where we had laughed and cried and held each other through everything life threw at us. This house was not just a building. It was my history, my life, my memories of Tom. And Amber was trying to take it. On Friday, Helen brought me groceries. I still did not have the appetite to eat. On Saturday, my neighbor Dorothy came by with a casserole. She told me quietly that she did not believe a word of what Amber was saying. She had known me for 20 years and had never seen me seem confused or unstable. She thought I was as sharp as anyone half my age. It was a small kindness, but it meant everything. Someone believed me. Someone saw through the lies. On Sunday, I had an appointment with Dr. Martinez. It was supposed to be just a follow-up about my blood pressure medication, but she took one look at me and her face filled with concern. "Pearl," she said, "you have lost at least 10 pounds since I saw you 3 weeks ago. Your blood pressure is still elevated, even with the medication. You are not sleeping. The stress of this situation is destroying your health." She completed the official competency evaluation for the court hearing. She wrote in her report that I was completely mentally sound, cognitively intact, and functioning at a normal level for my age. But she added a note that whatever I was fighting, I needed to win it soon, because the stress was taking a serious physical toll. Sunday night, I sat alone in my house and felt the weight of everything pressing down on me. It was the night before Monday, and I still had not heard back from Jack. The hearing was Tuesday morning at 9. In less than 36 hours, I would be standing in front of a judge, trying to prove I was not losing my mind, fighting to keep control of my own life. I looked at Tom's photo again. "I am trying," I whispered to him. "I am trying so hard. But I do not know if I can win this." The house was silent. Too silent. I had never felt more alone in my entire life. I thought about how 3 weeks ago, my biggest problem was that Amber had called me useless at dinner. How I thought standing up for myself and cutting off their money would solve everything. How naive I had been. How completely unprepared for the war Amber would wage. She had not just wanted my money. She wanted to destroy me, to take everything. My house, my autonomy, my relationship with my son and grandchildren, my reputation, my dignity, everything. And she was winning. I finally fell asleep around 3 in the morning, sitting in Tom's chair, clutching one of his old sweaters, praying for Monday to bring the miracle Jack had promised. Monday morning, my phone rang at 8:15. Jack's voice was urgent and excited. "Mrs. Patterson, I need you to meet me at the coffee shop on Main Street. Right now, I have something to show you, and it needs to be in person." I got dressed faster than I had in weeks. Helen drove me because my hands were shaking too badly to trust myself behind the wheel. We met Jack at a corner table in the back. He spread documents across the table. Photos, court records, bank statements. Mrs. Patterson, he said, I found out that your daughter-in-law has done this before. What? 3 years before she married your son, Amber was in a relationship with a man named Richard Thornton. He was 63 years old, a widower, had made money in the pharmaceutical industry. Amber was 30 at the time. The relationship lasted about a year, and when it ended, Amber tried to claim he had promised to support her indefinitely. She filed legal harassment against him, made claims about his mental state, said he had made promises he was now denying. She put him through exactly what she is putting you through now. I stared at the documents. This is real? Completely real. Mr. Thornton settled out of court. He paid her $80,000 just to make her go away. He told me on the phone yesterday that it was the worst year of his life, and he just wanted it over. He said Amber was the most manipulative person he had ever met, and that she specifically targeted him because he had money and no close family. Jack pushed more papers toward me, and there is more. Amber never went to college like she told your son. She lied about having a degree. She has been married twice before Brandon, not just once like he thinks. And she has massive credit card debt in her own name that Brandon does not know about. $45,000 across multiple cards. Helen leaned forward, her eyes wide. How did you find all this? Jack smiled slightly. I am very good at my job. But the best part is this. He slid a stack of photos across the table. Your daughter-in-law has been having an affair with a 26-year-old personal trainer she met at the gym. I have photos of them together at a hotel 3 times in the past month. I have her credit card statements showing she is paying for the hotel rooms and expensive dinners, while claiming she is too poor to afford her mortgage. I looked at the photos. Amber and a young man with perfect teeth and too much hair gel, kissing in a parking lot, holding hands walking into a hotel, coming out 2 hours later. Does Brandon know? I asked. Not yet, Jack said. But I think we should tell him. I felt sick. This information could destroy Amber. It could wake Brandon up to who he had married. But it would also devastate my son. He loved her. Despite everything, I knew he loved her. Gary showed up 10 minutes later. Jack had called him too. Gary reviewed everything with his lawyer's eye. This is good, he said. Very good. It establishes a pattern of behavior. It shows Amber has specifically targeted vulnerable people with money. It shows she is capable of lying and manipulation at a sophisticated level, and the affair proves she has been living well while claiming poverty. This could win your case. But there is a problem, Gary continued. I just got a call from the court. The hearing has been moved up. It is not Tuesday at 9 anymore. It is tomorrow, Tuesday, at 9 in the morning. Amber's attorney pushed for an earlier date, claiming urgent concerns about your ability to manage your finances independently. We now have less than 24 hours to prepare. Jack swore under his breath. I need more time. There is one more thing I am checking on, but I need at least another day. We do not have another day, Gary said. We present what we have. It will have to be enough. We spent the rest of Monday preparing. Gary organized all the evidence into a presentation for the judge. Character witnesses were lined up. Dr. Martinez's evaluation was printed and ready. Jack's findings about Amber's history were documented and notarized. At 11 that night, I tried to sleep but could not. The hearing was in 10 hours. Everything came down to tomorrow. I would either keep my freedom and my life, or I would lose it all. At midnight, there was a knock on my door. I was not expecting anyone. Helen had gone home hours ago. Gary was preparing at his office. I looked through the peephole. It was Brandon. My heart nearly stopped. I opened the door. He looked terrible. His eyes were red and swollen like he had been crying. His hair was a mess. He was wearing a wrinkled t-shirt and jeans. Mom, he said, can I come in? I stepped aside. He walked into the living room and stood there like he did not know what to do with himself. I got a package today, he said quietly. It was delivered to my office. No return address. Inside were photos of Amber, with another man. I did not send it, I said quickly. I did not, Brandon. My investigator must have, but I did not tell him to. Brandon laughed, but it was a bitter sound with no humor in it. I confronted her. She denied it at first, then when I showed her the photos, she said it was not what it looked like. Then finally she admitted it, but said it was my fault, because I was not paying enough attention to her, because I was always worried about money and stress, and dealing with my crazy mother. He looked at me, and his face crumpled. Am I crazy, Mom? Is she right? Are you really sick? I walked over to him. I put my hands on his face like I used to when he was little, and I needed him to really hear me. Brandon, I said, look at me. Look into my eyes. I am not sick. I have never been sick. Everything Amber has said is a lie. She has been stealing from me. She has been manipulating both of us. And tomorrow she is going to try to take everything your father and I built. She is going to try to have me declared incompetent so she can control all the money. And you have been helping her do it. But the credit card, Brandon said weakly. You forgot you gave it to us. I did not forget. I gave you a card for emergencies. I did not know she was using it for designer handbags and spa days. That is not forgetting. That is being lied to. He sank onto the couch and put his head in his hands. What have I done? Mom, what have I done? We sat there together for a long time. I told him everything, showed him all the evidence Jack had found, showed him the legal documents, the lies, the pattern of behavior. I watched my son's world fall apart as he realized who he had married. The hearing is tomorrow, I said finally. At 9 a.m. Your wife is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. You are listed as a petitioner supporting her claim. Are you still going to support it? Brandon looked at me with tears streaming down his face. No, he said. God, no. Mom, I am so sorry. I have been so stupid, so blind. She manipulated me into thinking you were the problem. She made me doubt you, my own mother. How do I fix this? You show up tomorrow, I said. You tell the truth. What about Amber? What about the girls? Brandon, I said gently, your marriage is probably over. You know that, right? After tomorrow, after the truth comes out, there is no going back. He nodded slowly. I know. I cannot believe I let it get this far. I cannot believe I chose her over you. Dad would be so ashamed of me. Your father would want you to do the right thing now, I said. It is not too late to do the right thing. Brandon left around 2 a.m. I still could not sleep, but for the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. Tomorrow was the hearing. Tomorrow I would fight back. And this time, I would not be fighting alone. Tuesday morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through my bedroom windows. I dressed carefully in the navy suit Tom had always said made me look professional and strong. Helen picked me up at 8:15. Brandon was going to meet us at the courthouse. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Amber and her attorney sat on one side. Gary and I sat on the other. Brandon slipped in just before the judge arrived and sat in the back row. Amber turned around, saw him, and her face went pale. The judge was a woman in her 60s, Judge Patricia Morrison. She had a kind face but serious eyes. She reviewed the petition carefully before looking up. This is a hearing regarding a petition for psychological evaluation and possible conservatorship of Pearl Patterson, she began. The petitioners are claiming Mrs. Patterson is experiencing cognitive decline and is unable to manage her affairs. Mrs. Patterson contests this. We are here to determine if there is sufficient cause to proceed with a full competency evaluation. Amber's attorney stood up and began presenting their case. He talked about my forgetfulness, my irrational financial decisions, my paranoid accusations, my harassing phone calls. He made me sound like someone who desperately needed help. Then he called his witnesses. Amber's 2 friends, who had supposedly seen me confused at social events. They testified exactly as their written statements said. They lied smoothly and convincingly. I sat there watching these strangers destroy my reputation with their false words. and I felt rage like I had never known. But Gary had told me to stay calm, to let him handle it, to trust the process. When it was our turn, Gary stood up. Your Honor, before we present our defense, there is something the court needs to know. The judge looked up. Go ahead, counselor. One of the named petitioners, Brandon Patterson, the respondent's son, would like to address the court. The judge frowned. Mr. Patterson, you are one of the people who filed this petition. You are arguing that your mother needs to be evaluated for incompetency. Is that correct? Brandon stood up from the back row. His voice shook, but was clear. Your Honor, I was wrong. Everything my wife has presented is false. My mother is completely mentally sound. I am withdrawing my support for this petition. I am here to testify on my mother's behalf. The courtroom went silent. Amber jumped to her feet. He does not know what he is saying. Your Honor, my husband is under extreme stress and being manipulated by his mother. Sit down, Mrs. Patterson, Judge Morrison said sharply. Mr. Patterson, please come forward. Brandon walked to the witness stand. He was sworn in. And then he told the truth. All of it. How Amber had been stealing my money. How she had pressured him to support the petition even though he knew I was fine. How he had discovered she had lied about her past, about her education, about her previous relationships. How he had just found out about her affair. How she had been planning this for months, building a false narrative to get control of my assets. Amber's attorney objected repeatedly, but Judge Morrison let Brandon speak. When he finished, there were tears running down his face. He looked at me and said again, I am so sorry, Mom. Then it was Gary's turn to present our case. He started with Dr. Martinez's evaluation. She had written a comprehensive report documenting my complete mental competence. She included the results of cognitive tests showing I was functioning at a normal level for my age, actually above average in most areas. Then Gary presented our character witnesses. Helen testified about our 40-year friendship and how I had always been sharp and capable. Dorothy, my neighbor, talked about seeing me at neighborhood meetings where I was engaged and articulate. My former business partner from the real estate company testified about the complex financial decisions I had made since Tom died, all of them sound and profitable. Then Gary dropped the bomb. He presented Jack's findings. The evidence of Amber's previous pattern with Richard Thornton, the court documents from her lawsuit against him, Richard's sworn statement about how she had manipulated him, the proof that she had lied about her education and previous marriages, the credit card statements showing massive debt, the photos of her affair. Amber's attorney tried to object, claiming it was character assassination and not relevant. But Gary argued that it showed a pattern of behavior, a history of targeting vulnerable people with money and using false claims of mental incompetence to extort them. Judge Morrison allowed it all into evidence. Her face grew more and more stern as she reviewed the documents. Finally, Gary presented the evidence of theft. The credit card statements showing $30,000 in charges I had not authorized. The bank records showing I had been paying over $180,000 to support Brandon and Amber for 3 years. The proof that I had only cut them off after Amber had called me useless and I had discovered the unauthorized charges. When Gary finished, the courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison looked at Amber over her reading glasses. Mrs. Patterson, she said, do you wish to respond to any of this? Amber's attorney whispered to her frantically. She shook her head. No, Your Honor. Judge Morrison leaned back in her chair. I have reviewed all the evidence presented here today. I have heard testimony from both sides, and I am going to make a ruling right now rather than taking this under advisement. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that Pearl Patterson is experiencing any kind of mental incompetence, the judge said. None. What I see is a woman who made sound financial decisions, discovered she was being stolen from, and rightfully cut off the people who were exploiting her. That is not irrational. That is exactly what a competent person should do. She looked directly at Amber. What I also see is a petition that appears to have been filed in bad faith with the intent to manipulate and control Mrs. Patterson's assets. I am dismissing this petition entirely. Furthermore, I am ordering that the temporary restraining order be dissolved immediately. Mrs. Patterson is free to contact her grandchildren and family members as she sees fit. She turned to Gary. Counselor, you mentioned a property lien filed as part of a separate civil lawsuit? Yes, Your Honor. Based on the evidence of false witness statements and the pattern of fraudulent behavior established here today, I am ordering that lien removed immediately. I am also referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office to investigate whether criminal charges for fraud and perjury should be filed against Mrs. Amber Patterson. Amber went white as a sheet. Her attorney looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. We are adjourned, Judge Morrison said, and banged her gavel. It was over. I had won. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Amber lost what was left of her composure. She screamed at Brandon, calling him weak and stupid. She screamed at me, saying this was not over, that she would take Sophie and Emma and disappear, that I would never see them again. She revealed her true self there in the courthouse hallway, for everyone to see, vindictive and cruel and desperate. Security had to escort her out. Her attorney quit right there, told her to find someone else to represent her in whatever came next. Brandon stood with me in the hallway, looking shattered but relieved. I am getting a divorce, he said quietly. I already talked to an attorney yesterday. After I saw those photos, I knew it was over. I need to protect the girls now. Can you help me, Mom? I know I have no right to ask after everything I put you through, but can you help me? We will figure it out, I said. But Brandon, things are going to be different now. I love you. You are my son, and nothing changes that. But I am not going to enable you anymore. You need to stand on your own feet. You need to learn to support yourself and your daughters without relying on my money. He nodded. I understand, and I will, I promise. The next few months were hard, but healing. Brandon filed for divorce. Amber tried to fight for full custody and spousal support, but Brandon's attorney used all the evidence from the competency hearing. They settled on joint custody, no alimony. Amber moved back to the state she had come from originally. I never saw her again. Sophie and Emma started coming to my house every other weekend. The first time they visited after everything that had happened, Sophie asked me if I was really okay. I sat her down and explained, in terms an 8-year-old could understand, that Mommy had been very angry and had said things that were not true, but that Grandma Pearl was perfectly healthy. Emma just hugged me and said she missed me. That hug was worth everything I had been through. Brandon got a better-paying job with an accounting firm. He rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment and started learning to budget. I helped him with the girls' school expenses and bought them clothes and birthday presents, but I did not pay his rent or his bills. He had to figure that out himself. Our relationship slowly healed, built on honesty instead of money. My health improved. My blood pressure went back to normal once the stress was over. I gained back the weight I had lost. I started sleeping through the night again. I also started volunteering at the senior center downtown, helping other elderly people recognize signs of financial abuse from family members. I turned my painful experience into something that could help others. I taught classes on protecting yourself from exploitation, on setting boundaries with adult children, on recognizing manipulation. It gave me purpose. Helen told me she was proud of me, proud of how I had stood up for myself when it would have been so much easier to just give in and give Amber what she wanted. Proud that I had fought back. About 6 months after the hearing, I was sitting in my garden on a Saturday morning. The garden Tom and I had planted together 30 years ago. I was drinking coffee and reading a book when I heard Sophie and Emma's voices. Brandon was dropping them off for the weekend. They ran through the gate and threw themselves at me. "Grandma Pearl," Sophie said, "can we make cookies today?" "Of course," I said, hugging them both. "What kind?" "Chocolate chip," Emma said immediately. Brandon stood at the gate, smiling. He looked healthier than he had in years, less stressed, more confident. "I will pick them up Sunday evening," he said. "Is that okay?" "Perfect," I told him. After he left, I took the girls inside, and we made a mess of the kitchen making cookies. They told me about school and their friends, and a movie they wanted to see. I listened to every word, grateful for these moments I had almost lost. That evening, after the cookies were baked and the girls were watching a movie in the living room, I sat in Tom's chair and looked at his photo on the mantel. I had a thought I wanted to share with anyone who might be listening, anyone who might be going through something similar. If someone in your life calls you useless while they are taking everything from you, believe them when they show you who they are. Not the useless part, that is their lie, but believe that they are showing you they do not value you, they value what you can give them. And when you see that truth, as painful as it is, you have to act on it. Cut them off, set boundaries, stand your ground. It will hurt. It will feel like you are losing everything. There will be moments when you want to give up, when giving in seems easier than fighting. But on the other side of that pain, there is something worth fighting for. Your dignity, your self-respect, your peace, real peace. The kind you cannot buy or borrow. The kind you can only earn by standing up for yourself, by refusing to be used, by insisting on being treated with the respect you deserve. I looked at Sophie and Emma, curled up on the couch together, safe and loved. I looked around my house, the house Tom and I built our life in, the house I had almost lost. I thought about my son, finally learning to stand on his own feet. I thought about my volunteer work, helping other people avoid what I went through. I had fought back. I had stood my ground when everything in me wanted to cave, and I had won. Not just the legal battle, but something more important. I had won back my peace, my freedom, my life. And sitting there in my garden view kitchen with my granddaughter's laughter drifting in from the other room, I realized something. I was not useless. I never had been. I was strong. I was capable. I was a survivor. And I was finally, truly at peace. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love, even though it hurt? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? What did you do, and how did it turn out? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is going through something similar. If this story touched you, if it made you think or feel something, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and maybe, just maybe, helps someone who needs to hear that they are not alone, that they can fight back, that they can win. And if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself, about fighting for what is right, about finding peace after pain, please subscribe to this channel. There are so many more stories to tell. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who might be going through their own battle. Share it with someone who needs to know that setting boundaries is not selfish, it is survival. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you find your own peace, whatever battle you are fighting. You are stronger than you know. You are worth fighting for. And you are definitely not useless. Take care of yourselves. Stand strong. And remember, the people who truly love you will respect your boundaries. The ones who do not were never loving you in the first place.